if you are seeing this gentleman and you've followed the show for any amount of time, you've probably seen this face before. Mr. Scott Johnston is joining us this week. Scott, what's going on, man?
What's up, Nate? I'm surprised your computer still works after having me on twice. Surprised
Oh, man.
it's not tired of seeing this ugly mug, man.
Yeah,
Yo.
man. Yeah, man. Well, I am super glad to have you on, and I know that our audience will be glad to see you again. There was such a positive outpouring when you came on. So I'm looking to create that same vulnerability and openness that we created the last time, and we are going to change a life here today, my friend.
Absolutely, dude. In all seriousness, thanks for having me on again, and I'm happy to be here, man. Let's do it.
Yeah, man. So we're going to hit hard right from the get-go. So what has been on your mind recently, and what kind of labels have you been battling these days?
Oh, man. Well, what's been on my mind and on my heart recently is just that the world needs what I can bring to it. And that it needs me to step up and step into my abilities and the opportunities that I have and that we all have to create what we want to create. And the labels that I've been battling around that, really, for me, it comes down to finding jobs, right?
Okay.
Recently, I got rejected from 2 jobs back to back. Wasn't really much of a surprise, but I hadn't applied for jobs in a while. I'd been doing my own thing and kind of thought, okay, I'll give it another shot, and nothing changed. And it was kind of a pivotal moment for me and an eye-opener for me to say, okay, what you're doing and going about making money, quote unquote, the traditional way, how everybody wants you to do it, is not your path. And it's not working for you right now. It might not ever work for you, but you've got ideas and dreams that you can create, and you're surrounding yourself with the right people online, like yourself, Nathan, that have the knowledge, even if I don't, to help me bring those ideas, those visions, and those dreams into reality. So why not go for it? What do I have to lose?
Yeah, right. Yeah. You'll be in the same spot if it doesn't work out, right? But unless you try, you'll never know what could have been. You said a lot of good stuff there, and I kind of want to unpack that a little bit, because some people might be sitting there saying, well, why is it so hard to find a job? Like, what makes that an obstacle or a barrier for you? And I think that this is an opportunity to have a good, frank conversation about what that experience is like for you.
Yeah. Well, what makes it hard is I have a disability like yourself, Nathan. We both have cerebral palsy. I have what's called spastic quadriplegic cerebral palsy, where all 4 of my limbs are affected.
Mm-hmm.
And thankfully, though, my brain, my mind, and my ability to communicate are not affected. But some of the things that make it difficult are people's mindset around disability and what they expect from me and their misconceptions around what I'm capable of.
Mm.
Discrimination is a real thing, unfortunately. And I'm not saying it happens all the time, but it does happen. And I've been uh, the recipient of that. I won't use the word victim because I'm only a victim if I allow myself to be.
Mm. Powerful.
Um, but I've been the recipient of some of that, I'm sure. And it hurts. But along with that, also, I've got some physical challenges that make finding traditional employment or even having traditional employment difficult, where I need a little bit of help uh, day to day.
Mhm.
And unfortunately, because I just need a little bit of help, there is no help. And I'll be open. It's with using a public restroom. So basically, I just need somebody there to make sure I don't fall and help me on and off the toilet, because I really just need somebody for 15 minutes a day, probably twice to three times a day.
Mhm.
There's no help. Nobody wants to pay somebody for time and travel for 15 minutes. So I'm kind of stuck, and my only options are cath or wear a bag. And I don't like either of those options because I don't need to.
Yeah.
My whole life through high school and even through college, I had somebody there to help me. And now that I'm an adult and really need to hold down a job and be active in my community, there is no help, and that's frustrating. And it's saddening too. It's a tough thing to deal with at times, but um, you know, I'm making the best of what I have and moving on with life, man.
And one of the things that people watching or listening won't know is you and I had many conversations around all of this before, and one of the things you recently were talking about was you finally gotten to the point where like you reached that pain point where you're like, okay, now I know that I've got these ideas, and like you talked about earlier, I've got what I see as this path that I wasn't going towards before because I was leaning towards the security of a regular job. I was trying to get that security, and now
Mhm.
you've gotten to the point where it sounds like you're ready to take on that unventured path.
Yeah, and I would say, actually, more accurately, I hadn't fully embraced the
Mm.
idea of online entrepreneurship. I kind of wanted the best of both worlds. And don't get me wrong, if somebody wants to hire me and give me the consistency of a steady paycheck for a while, I would take that. But it doesn't seem like that's my path, and I've had these ideas for years, and just out of insecurity, because of a lot of judgment and just ignorance that I've received throughout my life, it was really, really damaging to my self-esteem and
Yeah.
self-worth in ways that I didn't even realize until recently, which I shared in the last episode. Um, but I've dealt with that, and now I feel like I'm fully stepping into who I am as a person and stepping up for myself, defending myself when people doubt me or put their worries and concerns on me. I'm able to say, okay, I understand, and I know you're trying to help, but this is something I've got to do. And
Mm.
you know, I'm open at a point to hearing your ideas, but now is not the time. So
Something I've learned recently is to be like, thanks for the feedback, right? Because you can decide to take it or not take it, and
yeah,
that's your choice. If you're watching and listening, thanks for the feedback, and that's your choice to take the feedback. And one of the things I say is to look at the situation and say, is this person who's given me the feedback where I want, where I would like to be in concerns to the feedback that they're giving me? And then
mhm.
if it is a yes, maybe I put a little bit more weight into that. And if it's nowhere close to my situation, then I just say thanks and take what I need and leave the rest behind.
Absolutely, absolutely.
So it's like, it sounds like it's a both an overwhelming, maybe, or maybe you can tell me a better word, but overwhelming and exciting time that is ahead of you.
Absolutely, and I think that's a good way to put it. Um, it's overwhelming when I stop and think about it, but day to day, honestly, I don't have that anxiety anymore that I used to have.
Mm.
And this kind of brings me into another point we're going to talk about, and that is making the choice to embrace life as it is instead of wishing, hoping, and complaining about the way life should be.
Mm.
Because once you make the decision to accept life and say, yeah, in a perfect world, I wouldn't be an entrepreneur, at least solely online, because I'm an extrovert. I like to be out with people. I wouldn't mind working for somebody for a while, um, at least. But I had, for my own peace of mind, had to have that conversation with myself and say, look, your life hasn't turned out anywhere close to what you had in mind, but it's okay. You've been through tougher times and you're going to get through this. It's going to be okay. This is the way life is, and we're going to play within that, because the sooner you are able to, like I said, come to terms with the way life is instead of dreaming or fighting against the way the world is and saying it shouldn't be like this, the sooner you can get to work and create some real awesome stuff to help create some real lasting change.
Yeah, man. Yeah. So it's like the accepting of the circumstances, right? Uh, Accepting of the things that you have no control over.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
What does, when you think about this now, what does that greatness and those ideas that you have, what does your greatness look like when you step into that?
Oh man, my greatness ultimately. looks like just being able to be fulfilled in my work, um,
Mm,
and ultimately, even beyond the, shall we say, notoriety or money, before that even comes, um, being able to use my story and my ability to communicate to help others and love on others and just be my best self every day. But beyond that, it's having a platform where I can help other people with my story and ultimately help shape the dialogue around disability and really help others realize that they can not just survive with a disability, but they can thrive while living with it.
mm.
Because I don't even like saying thriving despite it, because, and you know this, Nathan,
Mhm.
disability is something that you really just, you learn to live with. And really disability in itself is a mindset. But anybody with any condition or illness, it's something that you just learn to live with. And you and I are so blessed in that our conditions are not life threatening. As long as we do what we need to do day to day, we're going to live full, happy, healthy, productive lives. There are other people, maybe somebody who's listening to this, that isn't so fortunate. And that's something that I remind myself of every day, that I have a lot to be thankful for. Yeah, life is hard sometimes, but I have a lot to be thankful for. And ultimately, even when it doesn't feel like it, and this is something that I said in the last episode, you have choices.
Mhm.
Even feeling like you don't have choices is a choice, right?
Yeah. No choice is a choice. Yeah.
Exactly. So, really owning that, and it's hard, but being able to step back when things are going haywire up here, in here, in your heart, in your gut, you're not feeling great, being able to step back and realize I have choices. And
Mhm.
I'm choosing now to focus on everything that I have and what I'm grateful for. And ultimately, what I'm grateful for is family, friends, and those who rally around me, who know who I really am, even at times when I seem unlovable or I'm fighting through something, that rally around me and remind me of who I really am.
That's so important, man. And one of the things, as you were talking, what I was thinking as you were talking about having a disability, one of the questions, and I'm sure you've probably gotten this question before, is uh, would you go through and change anything if you could take it away? Would you not have CP? And my answer is always, it's made me part, like it's a part of me, and it's shaped my character, my personality, and a whole lot about me. It is just not all of me. So
It and uh, I that's basically what I've said my entire life. I would not change a thing. Um, Now I would change the way I chose to process others' responses around it, but
Mm,
I wouldn't change whether or not I had or I have my disability, um, for the very same reasons you just said. I feel like it's given me a lot of wisdom, and at a very young age, I had to and was able to learn what's important in life,
hmm.
because even though you and I don't remember it, the fact that we had to fight for our lives as babies,
Yeah.
I think has forced us to grow up real quick. And I don't know about you, but when I was in school, people would always say, "You're so mature, like for your age." Like I was a freshman talking with seniors, and and I'd be talking with a teacher about next year, and they're like, "Next year? Like, how old are you?" I'm like, "Oh,
You're like 35.
I'm like 14." They're like, "What? I thought you were a senior." I'm like, "No."
Yeah.
So and sometimes I get made fun of for it because people call me an old man, but
Yeah.
I'm an old soul, and I think that has a lot to do with it. Is that there's just been a whole bunch of life lessons that I've learned through living with CP that I wouldn't change for the world. So,
So if there's some either a parent of a young kid right now with CP, or that young kid themselves is sitting at the other end of the screen watching us, what's the top life lesson as you sit there right now that could shave off a lot of trial and error for that young person or that family?
ooh, good one. Well, two things. They're kind of different. For the family, try and get your child involved in the community, so they have a solid group of friends around them, so that when you're no longer there, they have, or even if you still are, as they grow up, they have a group of friends. Maybe they need help day to day. So maybe they have, you know, some guy friends or girlfriends that they can move in with, that maybe could help with that care, to give them a little bit more of a, I hate this term, but normal existence. So they don't have to still be living at home in their 40s if it's possible for them. Or and also just the socialization is great for anybody. I mean, we
Mm-hmm.
may have a disability, but as I like to say, we're humans living a human experience. It's just different. It's just different. And then as for the child, the kid themselves, and I guess this could go for the parents as well. Life is going to look different for you as opposed to your able-bodied peers, and that's okay. Things are going to take a little bit longer to master. Like, I was learning how to tie my shoes at 18. I didn't dress myself until I was 14.
Mm.
But it's okay.
Yeah.
It's okay. It's going to take time. It's going to take effort. Put in the work, and it's okay. And then also, one last thing, I mentioned about forming those relationships. And Nathan, this is something that I mentioned in the last episode
Mm-hmm.
that I was on. But please, 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 please do the work to heal. I know that for kids with disabilities, it's very common for their peers to bully them, or even some adults that don't understand. Let me tell you, I used to always laugh it off as a kid. All that ignorance, it hurts more than you know. And some advice to the parents and to the kids, even if they don't seem like it, get them into therapy earlier so they can do some work to heal from all this and ultimately live full, very fulfilling lives with relationships, and hopefully get married and have kids if that's what they want. Because really all that hurt they're going to internalize, and it's going to really hamper their ability to step into those relationships as they get older. And I would just really, really recommend to any parents or kids that are watching to do that work, or allow them to do that work um, as soon as they can. Um, it'd be really hard as you're going through school, because I know school's a struggle, and I had to give myself some grace with all that, because I didn't really have time to focus on or even think about the mental stuff I was going through and the emotional stuff and all of that hurt, because I was so focused on the academics.
Mm.
Because for me, math was a struggle. And even in high school and college, uh, it was a struggle. And I had to really gut through it. And it wasn't until um, my late 20s that I really started playing catch up when it came to relationships and dating and all that stuff. So there's another example of how things come later, milestones come later, but they'll come. And also one last thing on this. I can't stress this enough. Even if there's parents of kids who are seemingly, and I like to use the term, locked in their bodies, where they can't communicate. They may be wearing
Mm-hmm.
diapers past the time that it's quote unquote age appropriate. They may need a lot of help, um, or they may just be like me, where they're, you know, fairly average, and their intelligence is quote unquote normal. Um, they everybody, whether you have a disability or not, everybody has a purpose, and you need to hold on to that, because that'll help you as you're growing up and going through a lot of this tough stuff, especially as you are growing into adulthood. It only gets tougher. Nathan, you and I have talked about this. And that is something that I have really held on to myself, is the fact that I have a purpose. And so I can't stress that enough either.
So, man, you hit a lot of good stuff, and I know people are going to get a lot of value out of all the things you just said. and I can't believe we've already talked for as long as we have here today. The thing that I want to stress and reiterate back to what you were talking about is the fact that, look, it doesn't matter if you have a disability or you're able-bodied. Everything comes at the timeline that comes for you.
Mm-hmm.
There's no, everybody has to do everything within this time period. We are all individual people, and certain things are going to come faster for some people, and certain things are going to come slower. It just depends on who you are and what your experiences have been, for sure. And I know that that can have a big impact on how labels show up no matter who you are, when you feel like you're not progressing at the same rate as your peers. 100%. So,
Something I really struggle with.
the progression.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely, man. You're not alone there. It can be daunting to see what's supposed to happen not happening for you.
That's why we got to work that much harder to make it happen.
Yeah. So I got one last question, and it's going to be a new one because everybody will know your no label defines me answer from the previous episode. So right now, doing a one step away challenge that's all about habit formation and going from an area of restriction to restructuring something in your life. So what's one step away for you to be one step closer to the person that you want to be?
For me, and this is actually good, this is something that I've already started working on. It is getting to bed on time and getting enough sleep, so I'm not running late. I have, anybody who knows me, I'm not the best with punctuality, and it is something that I know is holding me back, and it's going to hold me back from a lot of opportunities. And it's something that I'm actively working on fixing. And it all starts with getting a good night's sleep and getting up in time in the morning. So that is something that I made a decision when I decided to fully embrace the path of entrepreneurship just a couple of weeks ago. I'm like, you know what? You're 31 years old. You need to get to bed on time. Quit being lazy about it. Because I've kept a fairly normal schedule for a reason, just
Mm-hmm.
in case uh, a job pops up and I need to be on that normal schedule. I'm up by 5:30, 6 o'clock, sometimes earlier, and at the gym by 7:30. So that's really tough on days where I haven't gotten much sleep,
Yeah.
and I need to fix that. So that is something that I am actively working on, and actually I wouldn't mind your accountability on that, Nathan.
All right, man. Well, I'll send you the link to what we got going on in the challenge for sure. And the last thing I want to ask you, is there anything before we close out here that you want to leave the audience with?
Oh man, no matter how hard things get, just hang on, because, and I think I said it the last time too, um, tough times don't last, tough people do. That's one of my favorite quotes from Dr. Robert Schuller.
Mm-hmm.
And like I said, everybody has a purpose. And also, another thing, and I've kind of touched on this, But to any parents or teachers out there that are working with kids with disabilities or learning disabilities or anybody who's different, it's okay if things are done differently. As long as the work is getting done, it's okay. Because I have to use some adaptive software to get some of my work done, voice activation, and now that's actually becoming mainstream. I know so many people now that don't have a disability that use Dragon, and I'm like, huh? People have tried to get me to use that for years.
You're like, I had to use it when it was $500, not
Exactly.
dollars.
Exactly. So I would say, yeah, just because things look different, then again, the way you had things planned doesn't mean it's bad. And as long as the work gets done, that's all that matters. And as long as your son or daughter gets there, or the student, is showing up and being their best self every day, that's all that matters. And that's another thing that reminds me. Last point.
Mm-hmm.
The world needs you to show up and be your best self every day. And even if you fail, you're not losing, because failure is only a chance to learn. You only fail if you quit. One of my favorite sayings is keep showing up. And if you keep showing up every day, you're winning. So,
Awesome. So with that, remember, you are a tough person. Different doesn't equal less. And when you're up to big things, you must do 3 things. You must be patient, you must be diligent, and you must never, never quit. With that, you can catch us next Friday with another episode of No Label Live. I hope you enjoyed this week's episode of No Label Live. If you know a friend who can use this message and find value in it, make sure and share it with them today. Also, go ahead and tag me and let me know what you thought of the episode. If you want to become a bigger part of the No Label Defines Me family, go ahead and connect over at YouTube and Instagram at _Nathan_Todd. And share this message with a friend today. Let them know that they are more than a label. They matter, and they're one step away from their success. And remember, you're up to big things. And when you're up to big things, you must be patient, you must be diligent, and you must never, never quit. No label should ever define you. Your label should always empower you. And we'll catch you again next week.